you would please open up public forum.
Now taking public comment on open forum. Please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. Individuals representing an organization may request up to 5 minutes. It is at the discretion of the chair to allow for additional time. If you are joining the meeting by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. The clerk will call you by the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. If you are joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Accepting public comment from 011.
Good morning, supervisors. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning. Laurel Brentbaum, El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to make the board aware that our Stimulate Small Business Fund, that collaboration with the El Dorado Hills Chamber and the Community Foundation will be open for applications starting tomorrow, May 20th, and running through June 7th. So that the applications are very simple to complete. Any small business, 25 employees or less on the Western Slope are eligible, and less than $1 million in revenue. The application apply here is on our homepage, and I believe also posted with the Community Foundation and El Dorado Hills Chamber for accepting applications that will be reviewed and tomorrow. Any questions?
I don't think so, but thank you very much, Laurel.
Thank you. We're very excited about it. And thank you for all you're doing. Bye.
Thank you.
Public comment from Tracy D.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I would like to express that it feels like we're not moving forward as far as reopening, and there's not even an item on this agenda to update your citizens of the most important thing in our lives right now, which is reopening this county. So it's kind of disrespectful, in my opinion, that you don't even give us an update or have an item to discuss. You know, last week, many of us were under the impression that you were going to be drafting a letter to go forward with attestation 3. Then I realized the next day that that was just some talk and lip service. So right now we are following a defunct, unlawful plan by a governor who's a crook, #Maskgate. And I think it's time for you guys to step up as leaders and lead your county into recovery. I know someone who found their daughter hanging from a windowsill in the Bay Area. And this child is depressed because of what's going on and because of the climate that she lives in as far as this, lockdown. And so when we look at the curves we need to be flattening, it's the suicide, the poverty, and the unemployment rate. The hospitals are empty, and it's time to step up and stop taking authority that you don't have and going by authority by a governor who he doesn't have that authority either, according to our state and our federal constitution. So you see, I get a little excited about this when I hear about my friend having his child hang from a window. And I watch another teenager cry for 3 hours yesterday because this is not the life she wants to live. She quit her job because she's not going to be covered all day in a Petri dish. And this has just got to stop. So let's quit pretending we need to talk about art projects and what else we're going to build and what else we're going to fill the coffers with, and think about what's actually important, which is saving lives. Stop trying to stomp on the people up in Tahoe that pay property taxes. So yeah, I'm getting a little excited with this lip service we're getting. That's all.
Thank you, Tracy.
Excuse me, 390.
Good morning, Greenwood. I'm with Tracy, if you will. I must admit we must move forward. So far, we're doing a good job, but we need to move forward quicker so that we can get this county back rolling again. Also, I do notice that there's nothing on the agenda regarding what a WTF, if you will. And so we kind of ask, meaning wireless telecommunication facility. I'm looking at two trees, the tail of two trees in my living room here, and they are social distancing with adequate setbacks, and nobody really notices them anymore. But when they're too close to the neighboring property, they cause a lot of problems. They put people in a lifetime of jail, if you will, a life sentence, because this wireless telecommunication facility, because El Dorado County has no setback ordinance that is meaningful, they're too close. And while this person, this neighbor, receives no benefit from this WTF, there is why is this being imposed upon the citizens of the county of El Dorado? Because the board is unable or afraid or unwilling to do a meaningful setback, which would stop most of the issues that are brought up by the people who are saddled with this. And so let's get the county going with our communication facilities and the setbacks of these giant monopines that are supposed to be stealth, and set them back adequately so that the WTF industry knows what they're doing and the citizens of El Dorado County are not imposed upon as greatly as they are today. Remember, a 120-foot tall monopine can go on a 1 acre or half-acre parcel and be as close as 30 feet or 15 feet even to the neighboring property, which is ridiculous. And it just has, it's beyond my comprehension as to why we can't do something as simple as an emergency ordinance to take care of this issue and follow it up with a meaningful WTF ordinance that includes third-party analysis
Public
of
comment
alternatives.
at 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. And it's time to get moving on this. It's time to get moving on opening our county back up. And it's time to set these facilities back and get the alternative analysis done by an independent third party. If you're believing the WTF industry, you get what you deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Now accepting public comment from Mandy R.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank you guys for your work, but you know, it isn't enough for me. You know, it's very clear that this whole COVID thing was a serious issue. Everybody took it seriously. The numbers didn't add up. The data didn't add up. Nothing adds up. Now it's just obviously a power play with governors specifically from blue states that are now blackmailing the federal government to get more money. And, you know, money talks. And Newsom, after lots of protests, within hours of major protests at the state capitol, Newsom went from months to weeks to days. He just keeps backing down. Richard Sherman of the 49ers posted on Twitter yesterday, money changes everything. The team, 49ers, started exploring options outside the state. All of a sudden, the timeline changed to do outside ball games. So it's obviously this is about money. Elon Musk defied his county's stay-in-place ordinance, opened his factory, nothing happened to him. Our hairstylists, our salons, our gyms, especially our hairstylists, I see so many hairstylists suffering. I had one girl, she commented she could work in a grocery store, come across 300 people, but she can't do four people's hair separately. with face masks or whatever, hairstylists get more training on sanitization probably than most health experts, healthcare professionals. This is ridiculous. There's no reason you guys we shouldn't have to ask, first of all, because Governor Newsom is violating our Constitution. But I urge you guys to tell the governor, tell him, don't ask him, but tell him we're moving into phase 3. We're going to get our hairstylists, our salons, our spas back to work. They know how to do it. They know how to be safe. This weekend I was out and the consensus is out. People are bored of being scared. Everybody's out. The thing that really was just a joke to me was seeing some of these restaurants having to make these PVC plastic partitions so people can sit away from each other. So, I mean, to stop spit from going from one table to the next. I mean, this is getting to the point of ridiculousness. It's like idiocracy is what I'm seeing here. And I'm not saying that to you guys, but I'm saying these overall rules are idiotic. What Newsom put out in his rules for, you know, the guidelines for restaurants literally look like somebody copied and pasted from the standard serve safe protocol that all restaurants are already following. Literally a copy and paste aside from the mask. We know once the temperatures hit 100 degrees, especially downtown Placer.
Public comment at 3 minutes.
No
Hey,
air conditioning.
wrap it up, please.
No air conditioning, and you got them wearing face masks. They're going to start passing out. Please move to phase 3. Get our people back to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now accepting public comment from Mountain. Please unmute yourself.
Kim, move on to the next one.
Now accepting public comment from 154. Accepting
Good
public
morning.
comment.
Can you,
Okay, so we are at item 22 of our department matters, which is our COVID update. Take it away, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Ashton,
Excuse me, I'm
CAO.
sorry. Item number 22 comes from the Chief
sorry.
Administrative Office, recommending the board receive an update from county departments on the operational impacts of COVID-19.
Thank you, Kim.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kim, for that. Don Ashton, your CAO. The only update I believe we have today is from Dr. Williams directly, and then I may have a few things to say after that, but no other departments that I'm aware of.
Okay, Dr. Williams, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, thank you. So this has been a less busy week in some ways because we haven't been working on drafting attestations or anything like that. And the biggest piece of information I wanted to share is that we've seen our case count rise just a little bit at the beginning of this week, but we're expecting the numbers to go up even more. And the reason is because of a couple of things that happened. Actually probably started just before the attestation was put in place and we moved into stage 2, although timing wise it might look like it was a result of stage 2. And that is that we have case investigations going, one on the east slope and one on the west slope, both of which have involved patients who had been working while ill and have spread illness clearly to their family or household members, as well as possibly to co-workers. So we're in the middle of the investigation. We've had a lot of people tested from the workplaces, from household contacts, close contacts that these people have been in touch with. So at this point, one of them, there are 2 positive cases that are among co-workers of the patient that we were aware of, as well as a family member. And the other one, we've gotten 4 out. We've tested 9 co-workers and have had 4 negative test results so far. So that's good news. And that's actually two people have tested positive in that who are members of the same household, and both of them had been working while ill. And one of them was the result, or is the workplace results we have so far from one of those people. The other one, those are pending. So there's a number of people there as well. So this could, blossom into something pretty significant, or we may get lucky. So it remains to be seen. The most important message from this is that people can't drop their guard. They have to stay home when they're ill. This is a principle that we apply and recommend all the time, not just for COVID, but for flu season and for anything else. It's just really important not to be out in in the public, or certainly in workplaces when people are symptomatic. So we may be learning a lesson here, and hopefully that'll that message will get out and people will take this seriously. One thing that's working in our favor is that this happened after our test sites were set up. So there've been ample opportunities for people to go get tested right away. These people didn't necessarily get tested right away, but at least they eventually got tested, on their own. And we're able to get people the contacts in for testing as well pretty quickly. So we'd expect to see more information on that in the next week. And other things that are happening, one of the parts of my attestation was to say that we would make sure that we had enough contact tracing capability within our county, and that is allowed to be county employees, of course. So public health is where you start doing that. That's a skill that we already use as a routine basis for disease investigation even before COVID. And we've got, I don't know how many trained right now, but our goal was to get 30 public health staff trained, and we've gotten well into that process of training. We actually were able, because of these 2 investigations, to put some of the new trainees to work already, and they worked over the weekend and did a fantastic job tracking people down and making sure we're not missing anything. There's more trainees more training undergoing, or more people undergoing training this week, and I believe following that as well. So we're getting that done in time for when it's needed, and I think we'll have sufficient capacity in the long run within our health department. If things really get out of hand and we need more, then we will expand to more county employees as well. Around the state, you may have been hearing about contact tracing training that the state's been putting on. That has been mainly offered to local public health agencies that need the training for their own staff. It's also being offered to literally thousands of state employees who are underutilized due to their work being a little bit quiet during the COVID epidemic. And also some counties, if they've needed a lot of contact tracers, may be tapping some of their local resources like school universities, or some of their existing volunteer staff, for example, or nonprofits, that sort of thing. So state's working really hard at getting a lot of people trained for contact tracing if needed. I have a feeling that the places where that's the most needed is in some of the metropolitan areas. And as I mentioned, I think we're actually going to be able to handle our cases pretty well with our own public health staff. And then another thing that's happening that is another positive move is the state's working with all the skilled nursing facilities in the state, asking them to come up with plans for doing routine screening of both their employees and their staff and their residents. And so our public health staff is working closely with our 5 skilled nursing facilities in the county to get their plans together. I think they have a deadline of having these plans in place about 2 weeks from now. And so that's going to be, we're trying to help them with the logistics of how they'll get those people tested on a routine basis. So that is, I think, my main update. The only other thing you've probably seen in the news, that the state has added a couple additional criteria that are options for counties to use for attestation. And that lets counties, for instance, Sacramento and Yolo, I think, were both held back in the first round of attestation because they had COVID-related deaths in the recent couple of weeks. And so they, the new attestation options will allow, I think, those 2 counties to apply and probably be allowed to move into stage 2 at the faster rate as well. And that's all I have.
Okay, comments or questions for Dr. Williams? Yes, Supervisor Heidel.
Dr. Williams, on the 2 investigations that you talked about, I assume that those were not asymptomatic type carriers that transferred. These were people that were exhibiting symptoms that knew they might have the virus, who then exposed other people. Is that kind of a summary of what went on there?
That was true in both cases, yes.
Okay, so do we have a feel yet of how many asymptomatic people are transferring the virus to other people unknowingly that's starting to influence the numbers? Because I recognize, Tahoe took a pretty big jump recently. And I don't know if there's any connection with that part of it from the standpoint of there's just more people in the basin and therefore the asymptomatic carriers are transferring without full knowledge of themselves that they're carrying. I mean, I'm just trying to get a better feel for what's going on in the Tahoe Basin in particular.
Right. No, that's a great question. And I think that I don't believe we've had any asymptomatic cases that we've detected yet, including all of the people who've gone to the testing site who are asymptomatic. I think the only people who've come up positive through that testing are people who actually had symptoms and should have gone in anyway. I know that that's been shown to be a possibility elsewhere. And my understanding is most of those would be found in household contacts. So people who are getting tested anyway because of their close proximity to somebody who's had a case, had a positive test result and been symptomatic. We don't really know how easy it is for people who are asymptomatic to transmit illness. And the thought is that it's probably a lot less likely just because the fact that they're less ill probably means they're carrying less virus around in the first place. I think it's just, it's theoretically possible, probably much less likely than people who are coughing and have runny noses and whatever other symptoms they may have that could transmit illness. And let's see, so we may turn up some asymptomatic people here because we are testing people who were in close contact with these case patients, just regardless of their symptoms right now. So like their coworkers in particular, we just want to make sure that those are the closest people outside the household that would have been exposed. And if we come up with all negative tests there, then we'll feel pretty good about the community as a whole that these people maybe didn't spread the illness around as far.
Can I add one final question, and that is for the what I'll call tweener type businesses where they may be categorized as a gymnasium, for instance, but they're not really operating as the typical gym. It's more of a studio type of thing. So is there any area that the governor has brought forward yet that talks about being able to reopen in stage 2 some of those businesses that are somewhat unique in the way that they deal with the people that they're treating or giving administrative support to, et cetera, in the fact that they are social distancing, there's a minimum amount of contact, those kinds of things. Is there anything coming from the governor's office that would say there is some understanding that there's always a unique business that should be considered as part of stage 2?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm aware of the interest in that topic, and I have not heard any guidelines. I think one way or another at this point. I know, I think gyms overall are still considered a stage 3 activity. I don't know if the governor of the state has looked at any kind of variations on that yet. And I know a lot of people are looking forward to that, and I will share that information as soon as I find out.
Thank you.
Okay, they interviewed you. Yes, Sue.
Quick question for Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, we've had quite a bit of discussion about the Tahoe Basin and the travel restrictions. What's your latest indicator of when you see travel restrictions being reduced, and how do you feel we are posed as far as being a part of all that with our travel restrictions specific to Tahoe?
Right. So the state has not made any indication that that's going to be accelerated beyond stage 3, where non-essential travel still sits. So if even then, I mean, I'm assuming that it'll be on stage 3 and not stage 4. But at this point, we don't expect anything at the state level to change. So the order that I have in place really is just another layer of the same thing. It doesn't really change anything. I had the first of the bi-weekly communications or consultations with some of the Tahoe leaders. I know you've had some information or your opinion into that as well. There's, the thought is partly that it doesn't really matter if my order stays or not, given that the state's order is likely to stay in effect for a long time. However, I had, on the call, we had representatives from Barton and then City of South Lake Tahoe, and the general consensus was, let's not draw attention to non-essential travel right now. Let's wait until stage 2 has been in effect for a little while, so that we can tell if we've already had some changes to our rates, and take it from there. So they didn't really feel that there was much risk in leaving it in place, or and then taking it away right now might send the wrong message to people about travel. So we agreed to go ahead, and we'll touch base again in another week and a half or so from now.
Yeah, because it's my understanding that Barton Hospital in particular is concerned about a surge. If it would happen, if we would open up the borders, basically, we are seeing just by driving down the streets, there's much more activity coming our way in Lake Tahoe. So higher numbers, as Supervisor Heidel was referring to, it wouldn't be surprising to see that. Because we are opening up our restaurants, and we're trying to keep it a locals only, but we have second homeowners that are coming up who are allowed to come up as per our regulation of just fining just the renters and the actual vacation renters. So I think there's some issues there as far as when are the floodgates going to break, and we're all very concerned with that, being that tourism is our only industry basically up in Lake Tahoe, and so there's a lot of pressure there, and yet we understand that the more travel we do, the more that puts our community at risk. So we're trying to figure out that balance, and I really appreciate all the work you've done, Dr. Williams, and been there's been great conversation with our public health system up in Lake Tahoe to figure out what's the best method. But I want everyone to be assured that we're working very hard at trying to keep this moving forward in a balanced process. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Supervisor.
Supervisor Frenzen or Supervisor Parlin?
I just have a comment. Dr. Williams, thank you for your continued efforts and the EOC team. And I also want to acknowledge our communicable disease team for all their efforts in investigating and reviewing the positive cases. So thank you, everyone, for all your efforts. That's all I got. Thank you.
And just a quick thank you, Dr. Williams, for working with Dawn Ash and our CAO with helping me respond to all the requests we're getting for folks that want to open, aren't sure how to open and all that. I really appreciate it. There's just a lot of questions out there. And I agree with Supervisor Novosel. We're doing our best to open in a balanced manner. And it's tough. It is tough. And I'm trying to put out positive messages that I think our county's doing well, and I hope we maintain what we're doing because it's working. And then I think if we can continue in this pattern, it'll help us open and push even further faster is my hope. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Dr. Williams, from me, just a couple comments. And obviously, we're all getting guidance from our constituency, which I appreciate. One element that I think we should pay more attention to, obviously I understand the numbers that we get from testing and the total case numbers that help you determine herd immunity, and then where to monitor those people if they are positive. But a hospitalization count is also a number that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to, that obviously will help with our surge capacity. But if we look at the hospitalization counts, even in the urban areas, the federal government, state government brought in a lot of resources. If you want to, I'll use our old Arco Arena as one of those, and now it's being shut down. The military ships are going away because they never met those capacities. So I don't want to downplay that piece, but I think we need to be real with the actual facts of what has occurred to this point, and we have nothing in place. So I think giving all of the protocols in place that you and other health officers, I'm sure you are discussing, again, let's call it consequential reactions to this whole pandemic that has not materialized. And I think that has to be taken into account, and in the total cost of what we've done, because the hospitalization number and the actual people who have gotten sick, and I'm not downplaying anybody that's died because of it, but actually in some areas we've not even reached any potential, if you want to call it that. So just again, keeping all that thing in all those things in mind, I've got a lot of people talking to me about it. I certainly understand that. And we have to be using this rationalization of factual data in this whole process. And I believe everybody is trying to work to that as well. And as we talked about last week, facilities that can manage, they're in phase 3, but can manage in a phase 2 setting, we have to be pushing for those. And I think there are protocols and guidelines, just as in eateries, that can be followed to allow them, and I'm going to use a hair care facility, one of them, that could do that by appointment only and do the proper cleaning and so forth. And then I also really strongly stand up for some type of religious services for those folks as well. And I think it's very important for our country and our society. So again, appreciate everything that's being done, but I think we need to continue to push. And I think our governor is open to moving ahead, and he obviously is, I'm going to call it, rewarded us for doing the right thing. And I think we can stay on top of that and show that we can handle it. And so I would just leave you with that, those comments there. And Don has some as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to, so switching gears a little bit, but it is related to COVID. Now that the May revised budget has been issued by the governor, we are starting to receive information on estimates to funding level reductions to our realigned programs. So in the 10 years I've been in this county, we've historically let the realigned programs operate at the recommendation of the department head and quite frankly, without as much scrutiny, because it doesn't impact the general fund. The estimates coming out of CSAC and RCRC is that some of our realigned programs, I'm talking social services, public health, prison realignment, the CCP program, their revenue estimates are to be as much as 25 to 35% lower than projected as of in January. So how's that going to impact our operations? And I believe there was a letter issued yesterday by most of the professional organizations that rely on realigned funding. So from CPOC, CSAC, RCRC, CWDA, advocating to the governor that there has to be some backfill of those lost revenues, or the impacts will, quite frankly, be devastating, quite frankly, to populations that need help more than ever during recessions. So we are starting, I want the board to be aware, we are starting those conversations at the staff level of what those impacts would look like, assuming no federal funding or state funding coming in. That will be the baseline for that discussion, and those will be evolving over the next few weeks and culminating into our summer budget discussions.
I fully appreciate the heads up on it, Don. It's really confusing to me to see headlines that were allowing undocumented immigration to get social service programs ahead of our residents that can't get the social service programs that are going to be needed. That totally blows me away. Any other comments or questions from Don and John?
Yeah, Don, I've been looking for a breakdown of where the $54 billion deficit that the governor's talking about is really going to start impacting the various categories in terms of percentages. And I find a lot of general language and stuff, but I'm not able to get to the point of understanding line item type in the budget where he expects to see those 20 or 25% reductions. Have you seen a document that gives you really the delta, the breakdown from what he had in January till now for specific categories of services?
I've not seen a document for the full 54 billion, and I'll remind the board, the LAO's office, Legislative Analyst's office, estimated around 30 billion. So still a big number, but a lot different than 54. There was a document that was released Thursday or Friday for the realigned programs that shows the estimated reductions per program, and I can share that with all of you so you can see that. And it is a, it's the dollar amount's a dollar amount for the entire state, but if you look at the percentages, I think we can apply those percentages to what we'll be dealing with. So I'll share that with you, but that's all I've seen so far, Supervisor.
So that would help, because I'm just trying to get a feel for where the major impacts are and the magnitude. Some of them are 5% cuts, some of them are huge cuts, right? So you just got to get a feel for the overall impact it's going to have. And that's what I'm trying to find through the sources and not getting a lot of positive results on that.
And that point is why we've been hesitant from out of my office to start. We need to start having conversations and be realistic that reductions are going to take place. The magnitude of those, we simply don't know because we're waiting for some of this data and this information. So trying to balance that, when's the appropriate time to really get into those versus it, but also to demonstrate we are being fiscally responsible and watching it and try to find that sweet spot.
Yep, thank you.
I had a quick question for Don.
Yes.
So where are we? You know, it was disturbing to hear that the state employees, they feel maybe having to take a 10% pay cut. What's the conversation like around the state as far as that process and how that might affect us?
Yeah, you know, Supervisor Novosel, I just heard that this morning on the radio, that it's the non-exempt employees, I'm sorry, it's the exempt employees at the state were taking a 10% pay cut. I had not heard that before today. It wasn't talked about on the CAO call on Friday. So that seems to be a relatively new development. There are a lot of conversations with counties. Some counties have already implemented hiring freezes and furloughs and things such as that. Your department head team's been having those conversations. We're going to have more conversations this Friday, but we're not ready to make those recommendations. We do have priorities and a plan in place of how we would prioritize those. But we really feel we need to see at least some estimate of the magnitude of the revenue impacts that we're going to be facing with before we can have public conversations with your board on it.
No, absolutely. And I realize, you know, that's going to take a lot of conversation with our employees and the unions. I just think, you know, that this sounds like it's a tsunami coming as far as this being an issue. So, you know, as much update as we can get on that, I think is going to be really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any other questions or comments for either Nancy or Don at this point? I will open up to public comment. I would ask that Tracy and Mandy, we received your comments relative to open forum, and I think they were relative to this item. Unless you have anything that you absolutely need to add, I would ask that you not comment then on this item, and we'll open up to anybody else.
Now taking public comment on item 22. Please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. Individuals representing an organization may request up to 5 minutes. It is at the discretion of the chair to allow for additional time. If you are joining the meeting by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. The clerk will call you by the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. If you are joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Now accepting public comment from 154.
Hello, board. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, guys. Vince Minnie. Own a strength and conditioning studio here in El Dorado Hills. And first, I want to start by saying, board and Dr. Williams, kudos and hand claps. You guys really are doing a phenomenal job. And I know it is a difficult process. So I, for one, want to thank you for all you're doing. But I would like to speak, and I've written several emails back and forth regarding the differences between membership, non-membership facilities. And I am in agreement with the governor that I think it's going to be very difficult for the bigger gyms, although I wish they could. I think it's going to be difficult for them to open on 2 ends, margins and guidelines. So it'll be difficult. But having said that, and what came to light to me last week is a peer of mine who owns a facility in Sacramento, who at the time still has not met the criteria for phase 2, was in discussion with his public health administrator, and that would be Peter Bielenson. He was approved last Friday to open, and that was per a discussion that he had with my peer. And he stated, studios can be treated differently than regular gyms. Therefore, you have approval for one customer per 250 square feet in your fitness studio. This is based on no face-to-face exercising, strict social distancing, immediate ingress and egress, which quite honestly, I think is not enough. But he was given approval for last Friday to open up. And although I know we still are moving slowly, and I know we want to move up and open sooner, and following guidelines has definite repercussions down the road for different fundings if we don't. I'm pretty aware of it all, but I am asking if I need be, please let me be a beta tester for this type of an environment. Safeguards that I have in place are like none other, from air conditioning systems all the way down. We are a appointment only facility, and a lot of our people right now have been asking to come in and work out based upon them returning back to what we call the atrophic state. I have one lady who is finished her last chemotherapy session, and when we shut down, she's been walking, but she said to me last week, she said, "Vince, I need to get back." She said, my respiratory system's down, my strength is down. I'm trying to do things at home. There's a definite need, and I know everybody's aware of it. And I also am aware that we need to move
Public comment at
cautiously.
3 minutes.
So I'm asking today, again, to please consider everything that I've sent. And you guys have been great in getting back to me. So I apologize if I am going on, but I am asking to please allow me to be the beta testing facility for a facility that was opened in Sacramento, and they're not even in stage 2. So I'm asking, please, if there's any possibility, to please let me know. And thank you again for everything you're doing, guys.
Thank you, Vince.
Now accepting public comment from 390.
Good morning, board. This is Ken Greenwood, District 2. As they said on the beaches at D-Day, 75 plus years ago now, jar them in and loose. We need to keep moving. Get up, advance, fight. The governor is playing brinksmanship. We need to play brinksmanship also, or in present terms, brinkspersonship, whatever you want to call it. We need to play some hard hands here. And while not making the powers that be really mad, but it clearly shows that if you push Governor Newsom, he will give. So it's time to start pushing a little harder. It's time to jar the men loose, as they said. And we need to get on with this whole thing. And it is, we're losing time. We're losing hairstylists, especially. And again, those people are trained. They are. That's one of the cleaner industries, and it's had to be, duh. But we need to be able to. Even Newsom needs a haircut. That's for sure. As do I. As do all the rest of us. But these people are trained to be clean and to be sanitary. And some of these other things with these plexiglass shields and this and that at our restaurants are a little beyond belief. They're costing the people lots of money. And really, it's time to get on with our lives. I, for one, am running out of money. And it's time to get going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Now accepting public comment from Galaxy J7.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kara Donati. So I just want to say that I think when we get into politics, it tends to skew our perception of reality. And so I really just want to remind everyone when we look at the facts that there's 2 cases of people sick. That's not unusual. People get sick. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we are really grounded here. People get sick all the time. And I know that right now with this COVID hype, that people just don't know what to do with it. But I really encourage you guys to really ground yourself in that, the fact that the hospitals are laying people off, and that most people don't get extremely sick from this anyway. Most people, and it's actually really good to get immunities. How that's a really natural occurrence, and it's actually really good for us to be out and about and just building up immunities. And one other thing I wanted to bring to the table, and I concur with the last person who was speaking, is that there's a county in California called Atwater, and they just declared themselves a sanctuary county for small businesses. And I really think that we need to look at that, because if the governor can declare a sanctuary for illegal immigrants, we want to declare sanctuary for our citizens. Our citizens are losing their businesses. They are running out of money. So what do we do to protect them? What can we do to protect them? Let's see. How can we do that? So if we're a sanctuary city for small businesses, they can never shut us down again. They should open us up tomorrow. And that way, we keep our small businesses. Our people are allowed to feed their families with the money that they earn. So I really think that that is a good thing to do. I'm really proud of that county that took that step to make their citizens a priority. And I really think that we need to think about that, because this can't happen every time there's a flu. We can't quarantine healthy people. So that just does not make any sense. And so instead of playing politics, I think at this point we tell the governor and we tell whoever else that we are going to protect our citizens. We're going to put our citizens first before politics.
Public comment at 3 minutes.
And yes, so I would just ground yourself in the truth. I'm busy, honey. Ground yourself in the truth. And also consider sanctuary city for El Dorado County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Accepting public comment from Kay Day.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I just want to take this opportunity. I'm a hairstylist. I work in El Dorado Hills, California. I will have been off work for almost 3 months by the time that I'm appearing to be able to go back to work. And I just want to be a voice for my community of hairdressers. And we are extremely frustrated and extremely sad. I think that we are more than just hairdressers. We connect people, and we are actually more than that. And I think that this time off is actually, that's what that's done for our community, is realize that it's not just about making people beautiful. It's about connecting to our community. And there is a need for that. And, you know, I just want to reach out to you and say what the frustration is for our community is that there's no end date. There's in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from when? You know, it's like listening to the governor speak. It's like you speak in circles, and there's no plan. There's no end to this dark tunnel that our community has been in. And I just want to echo in a respectful manner that we are far safer than going into a Target or a Walmart or a Home Depot or a restaurant. Any of these, we are far safer and prepared to give our customers an experience that is beneficial on so many different levels. And so the frustration level for us is you guys are sitting there and the health director saying like, there's no plan for us. It's like, What can you substantially tell us that gives us any hope that there is something there, that we have something that we can have livelihoods for our families? We can go, I mean, 3 months. Can you imagine any one of you sitting there having to go 3 months with the unemployment that's $749 a week? That's what we get as independent contractors, $749. So I know that personally, my mortgage is due June 15th. They gave me 3 months. I have to pay my mortgage and my car payment after they've given me that, which I'm eternally grateful for. But as you sit there, and I know that, Mr. Verkamp, that you have made a comment in regards to our industry, which I'm so thankful for. But I need you guys to understand that this is playing with our lives. And we, above all the other industries, are prepared to go back safely. And I think that the health director needs to understand that there needs to be a push. And, you know, our industry is suing the governor. Our industry is suing the State Board of Cosmetology. I mean, this is so, our state is going to be tied up in litigation for years and years and years over this. And I'm just reaching out because I want you guys on a personal note to know how hopeless our industry feels, that there is actually people standing up willing to fight and say how unfair it is to say who's essential and who's not and for how long. So I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And I hope that you can hear in my voice how heartfelt that this plea is, that there is some hope for our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
There is no additional public comment.
Okay, I heard a couple things that may have been sort of questions. You know, Vince's question around personal training studios. I did see on the news this morning where they had opened those up, but the latest is that they were pulling those back. I think our CAO has that update.
There has been some confusion in Sacramento County. The Director of Health Services, and Dr. Williams, if you're still on the line, I may need your help with this, but the Director of Health Services is a physician and has authorized the opening of certain industries. And the most recent one that they hit the SACB yesterday was he authorized the opening of the Sacramento Zoo. He was doing that contrary to the advice of his health officer. He then had to retract that reopening of the Sacramento Zoo because CDPH said it was not consistent with stage 2 in the guidelines. So this is just another fact that causes confusion across the region when you have one individual say stuff they're perhaps not permitted to say, even though they believe it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, we're all following the state's guidelines because as counties, we are subdivisions of the state of California, and that's what we're obligated to do. Nancy, do you have anything else to add to that? You're muted, Dr. Williams.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute there. Yeah, I think that was a good representation of what's happened in the last day or so. I will add that I continue to have regular meetings with the Sacramento area health officers, and as a group, we're pretty frustrated by that situation. It's really inappropriate for a county leader to override the health officers' recommendations, and we've been working hard to try to be collaborative and to have fairly consistent messages across our counties. And so that what's happened in Sacramento has really negatively affected a lot of us in the surrounding counties by sending those mixed messages and confusing the public. So I wanted to add one more kind of wrap up thing here that relates to a lot of the stage, what I would consider stage 3 businesses at this time. I'm in favor as much as possible of us moving forward safely into as far as we're allowed to do. And I really appreciate the businesses and the industries that are looking at how to do things safely in the future. What I would also recommend you do, besides continue to advocate for yourselves, through us and through the governor's office and the state health department, is talk to the individuals, talk to people in other industries. You need to let people know right now that the governor is not going to let people move forward until we can show that we're safe in the current state we're in. And things like, I know it's just 2 cases right now, but the idea that we've got people who are possibly sparking little clusters of illnesses that could conceivably turn into much more major outbreaks because they were working when they were sick. That's a really important thing to note, because those are inappropriate behaviors that put a lot of people at risk, not just health-wise at risk, but they're putting other businesses at risk by doing that, because increasing the numbers in our county is going to put us in a much less favorable position to be able to argue that we can move forward. So I'm recommending that people continue to get the message out. The most important thing right now is personal responsibility, that individuals need to stay away from other people when they have symptoms of illness. So whether it's flu or COVID or norovirus, I mean, these are things that can be very devastating to workplaces, to businesses, to individuals. So that's what we have to do right now. So employers as well have to do the best they can to try to make their policies favorable, so that employees are encouraged to do the right thing and stay away from work when they're ill. So right now, I think a lot of workplaces tend to not intentionally, but their policies are such that they may be sort of punishing their employees by not having any means for them to get paid while they're off sick. So that's my understanding of what people tend to work while they're ill. So this is something that the businesses and the individuals who are currently working and currently allowed by the governor's orders to be out and about and do things according to the stage 2 orders or stage 2 plans. These people need to respect the other people who are not there yet and behave in a way that's protecting the whole county. So that to me, that's the #1 message we need to be sending right now.
Thanks, Dr. Williams. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Williams or Don? Don, I would ask that, based on our conversation last week and obviously today's conversation in the advanced planning group, if there are safe protocols that our health director and others would agree with, that we could suggest to the governor for some of these, whether it's a personal training studio, a hairstylist studio, that would include testing protocols, just to require that their employees or the owners aren't positive. Something, because again, I don't know how much longer, again, I'm really going to sympathize with some of these folks, how much longer they can hold out. And the stimulus, whether it's getting there or not, and how much more they're going to attempt to do, I don't know about that, but I know people are really starting to suffer now because of the length and duration of this. And our rural statistics aren't matching some of these urban statistics. And I think at some point, this board's going to have to interact. And it's actually the city of Atwater, I believe the lady was talking about, and they're making their sanctuary city. I don't know what the legalities are of that. David, I would ask that maybe you look into that, so we would have information relative to that also, if we have to go that route, because we're going to have to do something eventually to protect our folks if we can't get further movement.
Brian?
Yes.
Just a quick comment. I will always acquiesce to our health professionals, because you understand there's no reason why keeping us at bay other than they are caring about our health of our communities. So, I think the sanctuary state, or this whole sanctuary issue, is ridiculous. We need to do what is right. It's very difficult for everybody, but it's the right thing to do, is to wait until we understand that we have, however it is, however the transmission happens, whatever, that we're safe. Because all we have to do is look back in history at the Spanish influenza and what happened in San Francisco, when after a month of being in quarantine and wearing masks, they went in the streets, burned their masks, and 2 months later, they had twice the deaths that they did before. So we really need to stay on track here. I think it's critical. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
I fully understand that, Supervisor Novosel. I lost relatives of the Spanish flu, so I get it. I really do. But there's a lot of other people, and there's a lot of the ramifications that are starting to occur that are taking people's lives, and they're not getting the medical care and different things that they need. So it's a real tough balancing act. That's all I'm saying. So, okay. So thank you, everyone, for that. And we are on to item 24, because 23 we passed on consent.
Yeah, the could we go to the 10 o'clock?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 10 o'clock, treasure tax collector. I know. Karen is waiting.
Yep.
Item number 25 comes from the Treasurer Tax Collector Department, recommending the board provide consensual approval to amend El Dorado County Ordinance Revenue and Finance